Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabley, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. So, this is not Andrew. This is my much prettier co-host, my wife, Mrs. Matter of Facts.
Yeah, I'm not Andrew.
No, definitely not Andrew.
But a face with a voice.
Yeah, the longtime listeners are probably very familiar with my wife. She's been on the show a good handful of times. She's even admitted to being married to me, oddly enough. And
Got the ring.
she usually comes on to kind of help correct me and Andrew's perspective on things because, I mean, she came into prepping a very different way than Andrew and I did, with a lot different background, and I don't want to, totally talk over you, but, I mean, take 5 minutes, talk to YouTube, because...
No pressure.
Well, the audience that's here on YouTube, in some cases, is very different from the audience that's been a listener for a long time on the podcast, since we just started live streaming, so they have no idea who you are, other than this pretty lady next to this gruff-looking guy with the big beard.
Okay, so how I got into prepping, not podcasting, because I don't podcast. How I got into prepping, I married this guy. He kind of started it offhand, just, I don't know, one day he just started, stop shaking.
Sorry.
He just started prepping, and so, hey Kyle, I know you too. Hey Holly, hey H. Anyway, sorry. I thought he was crazy when he first started prepping. He was doing all sorts of gathering of supplies, and we were keeping things in the garage, and the clutter started growing, and I wondered, what in the heck is this guy doing? And then, I don't know, I guess, I don't even know, when it really just kind of hit me, and I just started playing along with the game. A couple of years ago, I realized how important it was that we be prepared as a family, be prepared for myself, be prepared as a mom, to really just get ready to face whatever life threw at us. And I didn't want to just be hung out to dry all by ourselves without any resources to really fall back on. And so that is really how I got into prepping. I just watched him, I believed in him, and I trusted the process, and I trusted that my husband was really just doing things for the betterment of our family to make sure that we were taken care of. And I got past the whole, this guy is crazy, and got into the whole, this dude is really smart and he's doing something genius for our family. So yeah, that's how I got into prepping.
Well, and to recap, from the time that you were about to have me committed to...
It wasn't that bad. I did go and talk to his dad and was like, should I be concerned? And his dad kind of talked me off the ledge, and I was like, all right, we'll see where this is gonna go. And so yeah, that's where we are.
But I was going to say, since then, we've had, just in the last 2.5 years, we've had COVID lockdowns, grocery store shortages.
Still seeing that, by the way. Sorry,
massive inflation, fuel prices, a Cat 4 hurricane.
Fun times. Fun times.
But I hate to say that I was vindicated, but we've encountered a few things since you really bought into prepping hard that have just kind of further reinforced we made the right decision.
Yeah.
To stop trusting our family's welfare to chance.
True.
But
So that's how I got there. So I'm here.
But for today, I was browsing, as I often do, and I came across an article that it posed the most common prepper debates. And this is always a fun one for me to get into with other people, especially her, because we don't agree on everything. That's one of the things that
Yeah.
That's one of the things I feel like makes us better as preppers and as husband and wife is that we don't always see things the same way. So
I agree.
I have my beliefs and ideas challenged, and that forces me to either defend them, make them better, or change them. So we end up with the best ideas, not just Phil's ideas.
Yeah, it makes us a little bit more well-rounded. And now that Piper's a little bit older, she can kind of voice her opinion and feed into the prepping too. So, although I sent Phil a text yesterday, I went to the grocery store and hey Andrew, and I texted Piper and I was like, hey, go look in the freezer and see if we have chicken in there, bags of chicken in the freezer. And she said, okay. So she goes to the freezer and she looks and she's like, we have one, but it couldn't hurt to buy another one. My 10-year-old said that. It couldn't hurt to buy another one. And I was like, oh, look at my little prepper. And she goes, gag.
Yeah. Yes, I really don't ever expect our daughter to be on this show. She's I don't know. She's a weird case because, like, on the one hand, she's literally grown up around this kind of lifestyle and this thought process, and she's been a benefactor of it in several cases.
Well, yeah.
But she's like very shy about talking about it, and which I don't blame her. And she's like expressed zero interest coming on the podcast whatsoever.
Yeah, we've asked.
Yeah,
plenty of times.
I've asked because I think that as a young girl who's kind of grown up in this lifestyle, she would have some pretty interesting insights. But she's not interested, and I'm not forcing her. I mean, this is something you have to really want to do,
right?
Or get drug into it by your crazy podcasting husband.
That's okay. I mean, at least it wasn't kicking and screaming.
No. We got past most of that the first year of marriage.
Oh, Lord. He's got a lot for me.
I think, if I remember right, it's only 9 items. It started out as 10, but 2 of them really sounded like just one was a repeat of the other. So I shaved it down to 9 items. Some of which I suspect you and I are going to very immediately agree on and move on, and some we're probably going to have a very vigorous debate about.
Okay. Let's do this.
So, first things first. The question came up of, do you barter for food or save for yourself?
You save for yourself, but you don't count out bartering.
I wouldn't count out bartering. I do firmly believe that, like, knowing the area we live in, there is a certain scarcity of prepper-minded people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So I kind of
think of hurricane season and the lines going down the street for gas and the grocery store aisles that are bare. Yeah, they don't think
there
like
were
us.
over 40 cars in the parking lot of the gas station closest to us the day before Hurricane Ida hit. Mm-hmm. 40
in all of them.
Well, that was the only one I got close enough to, and it was because we were across the street doing something else.
Right.
But, like, by the point that melee happened, Gillian and I had our vehicles fueled up, tire pressures aired up, maintenance checks done, ready to bug out if we needed to, guns loaded. Like, we were literally ready. We were ready for war. Mm-hmm. And then I look around and I'm like, oh my God, there are 40 cars trying to get gas all at the same time because you all waited to the day before Cap or hurricane hits to make that decision.
Right.
Whereas we fueled up 2 days before that.
Oh, no, I think we filled up. Anyway, yeah, we fueled up a few days before. We knew it was going to either come here or Lafayette, and we just wanted to be prepared either way.
There's a theme there. Anyway.
I missed it.
That we were preparing.
Duh. Hello.
But yeah, I wouldn't rule out bartering, but like at the end of the day, I always go back to the idea that, 3 days after a major emergency, there are not going to be many people in the area standing taller than we are. So
yeah.
if our default position was we're going to barter for stuff, no one's going to have stuff 3 days after an event.
No.
So I wouldn't close it off. But I wouldn't depend on it either.
I guess when I say barter, I think of apocalyptic times, like...
long term.
Yeah, like not the power's going to be on in a week and we can make do with what we have. I'm talking like the grid it's totally gone down.
Months on
and
end.
we are now, yeah.
Little House on the Prairie type stuff.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, honestly, and I get lots of flack for this from a lot of the prepping community, but like we've never been one to like invest in a lot of like gold or silver specifically for bartering purposes.
Well, at that point, what is gold and silver going to be worth?
But there's an argument to be made that would be the staple of the new economy is silver, because silver has always been a backup currency going back in this country to the time that the Pilgrims were here.
Okay, so I can definitely see having gold or silver as a means to barter, but I also see meat as being something to barter with, food just in general, clothing. I could see any sorts of entertainment, so maybe even a deck of cards, books. Oh, and ammo. Yes, of course, ammo, duh. But yeah, I mean, everything that we prep is something that we could use to barter with in like this post-apocalyptic world that may actually happen. You never know, but why not prep for it?
No, and I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's kind of been my big reply to the whole, yep,
Yeah,
Kyle
brass
saying
and lead.
invest in brass and lead. And, it's
I was getting there, Kyle. I was getting there.
It's one of those things where it's like I never want to fully discount silver, and I've actually been giving thought to approaching. There's a couple of shops in the area that deal in silver coins.
Yeah, right down the road.
I've given thought to approaching them and see if they only buy or if they will be willing to sell for like melt rate or something reasonable, and
That's not a bad idea.
add that into the preps a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I've always told people, I'm like, 9mm and 5.56 are as good as gold in a bad enough situation.
Yeah.
22 long rifle. I mean, a brick of that in the right situation, that can feed a family for a good long while with squirrels and rabbits. And I don't know if I try to take a deer with a 22 long rifle unless I was really hungry. But my point is, brass and lead. Brass and lead are perfectly negotiable implements. Food, clean water.
Yeah.
If
some source to clean water.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you think about this around us. Like, there's tons of water. A lot of it's brackish.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got good, clean, fresh water that you're drinking out of, it's safe, and you're willing to bail it out like a bottle at a time to your neighbors, that's absolutely a tradable commodity.
Yeah.
But
okay, next.
Bug in or bug out? It depends, right?
It depends. We've all heard about Gillian's injury and how we've decided as a family that we were going to bug in. But
for most things.
For most things. But I know that should a circumstance come up where we have to bug out, this chick is going to rough it and figure out life with an ankle that doesn't work.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
and also, like, at the time I really got serious into prepping, which was really about 6 years ago now, if you think about it. We were in a very different position because we not only had you with your injured ankle, which limits your mobility over long periods of time, but we also had a 4-year-old to tow around.
Yeah.
So now we have a fairly tall, able-bodied 10-year-old on our hands. She comes up to here on me. She can rest her head. She rests her forehead against my beard, so she's not a little bitty kid anymore. Mm-mm. And your ankle is no better, but like you said, in a bad enough situation, we'll tough it out, figure it out, do what we have to do. I guess I just think to myself, I'm like, for me, my default position really has always been and probably will always be bug in when possible, when it makes sense, because I just got redone recounting this on MOFpodcast.com. I wrote a blog article recounting our experience a year ago, by the way, for Hurricane Ida. And I even said in there, I'm like, there were a lot of pros to us bugging in. The cons came up because we ate more trees than we were anticipating. And the storm changed paths to be so much closer to us and the effects be so much worse. We bit off more than we could chew, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, we made it through. We pulled together. I don't feel like we were ever in any mortal danger of dying of starvation or thirst. we had our basics covered, but we were in really bad shape because we just got more than we bargained for with that storm.
Yeah.
But we've had Cat 2 hurricanes hit us pretty much on the nose, and power was out for 2 days. And in a 2-day power outage and a couple of tree limbs down, which is what we were expecting from Ida if it had gone where it was supposed to, we'd have been fine.
Yeah.
We really wouldn't have had problems. So it's one of those situations where it's like, on the one hand, I feel like we got dealt the worst possible hand we could have. But if it hadn't been that worst case scenario, bug-in would have been the right choice to make. And bug-in is usually the right choice to make, because here we have, enough guns to arm the Marine Corps. We have enough water to have all the utilities turned off for 30 days and be just fine. We've got a water catch on the backside of the house. So every time it rains, we've got 35 more gallons to use for bathing or flushing toilets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We've got food to feed an army. We've got non-perishables if the power gets knocked out for a long period of time. We lose everything in the freezer and the fridge. I mean, we're so much better set up here versus what we could carry reasonably if we were on the road.
Yeah.
But there are situations where bug-in is just a death sentence, and it makes no sense to try.
And I like what Kyle is saying, and Andrew as well, because I think once you get to that, it kind of goes back to that whole barter or prep your own, that last topic. Kyle says grow weed for pain. Absolutely. You better believe I'm going to start figuring out what plants I need or what fungus is needed for pain relief and other ailments and things like that, and kind of learn more about that. And then, liquor. You got to make liquor. So I can't drink. I will die if I drink alcohol because I drank too much in college. I guess. I don't know, but I'm allergic to alcohol and it really sucks. I tried the other night. Phil was podcasting. He was recording with Andrew or someone, and got his beer, and he's coming in here, and I was like, I want to try. And I took 3 sips, and I was in a lot of pain. So we'll make liquor, but Andrew, you're going to have to just come down and help drink it with Phil. Okay, next. Sorry.
It's okay. Talk about prepping or stay quiet, and this is a situational one. You and I we've both faced this. I obviously have totally said screw staying quiet. Like I podcast under my real name, which is a decision you and I talked about 6 years ago now, and I basically said at that point, I'm like, I'm gonna do this under my own name. I'm gonna say what I think. I'm gonna put myself out there. I just know that means I have no anonymity. And for a lot of years, you stayed out of the mic because you didn't want the whole world to know this was the lifestyle you were into.
It's not. I don't know if that's totally the case. For a long time, I was in a very public position.
Extremely.
With the parish and the state, and my beliefs were pretty much a direct opposite of the organization that I worked for. And so it, as much as I wanted to be on the podcast more and share my name and who I worked for and all this other stuff, and a lot of people know who I worked for. I don't work there anymore, but I don't know. When the topic comes up, I'm gonna talk about it, but I'm not forthright with that information. So I don't know how to describe that. It's like I don't mind saying that we're preppers, and I don't mind. It doesn't bother me at all to talk about our lifestyle with someone, but I'm not going to be the one to just go into the situation and start that conversation. Like, I'll feed into that conversation. But for a long time, I didn't feel like I really could do anything personal, because I was in such a public position that if anybody saw anything that I said and disagreed with, they would have gone after my job, and I would have been canceled. And I couldn't afford to be canceled at that point. Yeah.
And I mean, and because of the negative connotation that comes with prepping, which I still to this day think is just pretty boneheaded, to be honest, but I know it's out there. But like in certain company, I'm very forthright about the fact that we're preppers, we prep, these are the things we do, these are the things I think all of y'all should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of company that I don't bring it up. Like the camp, I keep referring to going camping with my buddies in September. I know what that means, and she knows what that means. She's coming with me this year with our daughter. But in mixed company, I don't tell them the reason we're going camping,
No,
or where, or like the event that's around it, because it's just one of those things where, like I said, there's a negative connotation around prepping. And quite frankly, there are times where, especially if I'm 99% sure I'm not going to find a receptive ear, I don't even bring it up. It ain't worth it.
right. Well, I have to take off work, and I'm in it's not a new job. I've worked in this place before, but when I go to take off the time and they say, well, where are you going? And I say, on a camping trip, they're going to be like, wait, you're taking off work to go camping? And so a lot of times in the past I've said, oh, well, Phil's on his business trip. So I'm going on a business trip with my husband and daughter this year to take classes on survival. And my friends at work, we are normal people.
Best compliment preppers can get. Y'all are really normal.
Yeah, you're normal. So anyway, yes. I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, it's a business trip in September.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's a difficult one to get in. It's hard to make a blanket statement on that because, like, on the one hand, I podcast under my real name, and it's not there. Rabelais is not exactly a super common last name, but there's not that many of us running around either. Yeah. So you do some Google searching, you can probably find me. You can find me quicker than I would like. Put it that way.
Yeah, you can find me.
Damn the internet for that. But it is the way it is, you know?
You Google your name and your book comes up. I've
Yeah.
Googled you before because I had to Google myself a lot when I was at my old job and just to kind of see what was out there.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. I did good things. Okay.
Okay, somebody just dropped something in the comments I'm not going to call attention to because don't beat me to the punchline. Help zombies or nah? This is a question that, in this context, zombies is the unprepared. So if you...
Oh, okay, because I was about to say zombies are just target practice.
No,
but you don't want to waste your ammo on that, so...
But in this context, the unprepared. And we encountered a fair bit of that during Ida. We had to make some judgment calls. I mean, we've always said, in a long enough term situation, in a bad enough situation, one that we didn't see an end to, we're going to really circle the wagons hard. Because every grain of rice, every bean, everything in this house is precious. It's another meal that we can't afford to be giving out to other people. And at that point, as cold-hearted as it sounds, you're on your own. Because I don't stock to feed the whole neighborhood for a week. I stock to feed my family for as long as possible.
Right.
And I'm not having a dozen empty hands and open mouths standing in my front yard like a nest of little baby birds because all of you adults decide to act like children and not plan ahead for bad days. But on the flip side of things, we have helped our neighbors when we had excess and when we saw an eventual end to the situation and we knew we could give without hurting ourselves.
Yeah, I think if you look at Ida, that was a different story. Now, if you start to think about long term, I keep going back to apocalyptic time, then you're on your own. And I don't know. I always have trouble with this one because my heart wants to help people and I want to be able to make people happy and healthy and all that stuff. But I have to think of my family first, and my family is going to get the preps that we put away. It's a hard one.
It is a real hard one.
Such a hard one, especially if it's like, I don't know. I think it's a different situation too if, and we've talked about this before, is if the people around you, if you build this community of people, say for instance, like our local in the cul-de-sac community, and you're kind of bartering with each other, but you're not really bartering, but you're helping each other. So we know that so-and-so has this, if we need to give them one thing, we know that they can give us something else, or something like that.
The hard part of this is we know from experience that anybody on this street in a bad enough situation is going to have to lean on us because they're not prepared. Certainly not up to our level, which is admittedly a little intimidating for a lot of people, but like the number of people that thought a bottle of water and a bag of chips was going to get them through Hurricane Ida was stomach turning to me.
Just the people that we were in contact with in our neighborhood. But go back to the comments.
I don't want to approach. Well,
no, he put another comment in there. If it gets bad enough, your neighbor will break into your house. Yes, absolutely. And I do take that into account. Like if we get into that apocalyptic era or whatever, those people aren't going to care if you are their neighbor. If they want something, they're going to do whatever they have to do to take it. And at that point, they may not be your friend. So I really think it just depends on the situation. Are we talking about a hurricane where we're out of electricity for a week and a half? Or has the grid gone down? At that point, you're on your own, and I will defend mine and my stuff to make sure it's safe.
Very situational, in other words.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it always comes back to the same thing. If I can give of excess, that's one thing. But if I think that bottle of water I am giving you is going to cut into my wife or my daughters,
you're not getting it.
That's a big old nope.
Yeah.
At that point, I will eat the neighbor's pets. Just sorry to be gross, but I mean, if it comes down to it, like I'm going to do what I have to take care of my family, and that doesn't include taking care of everybody else. You got to be you have to be a net positive to my group, otherwise you're by default a net negative. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of net negatives in this area, which goes along pretty nicely with like to me, one of the biggest problems we had during Hurricane Ida. It's the one thing I have still not overcome. Because I feel like, our generator misbehaving, I fixed that pretty quickly after Ida. We're still working on getting it wired into the house, but I got enough extension cords that if we had to put that thing back in action right now, I'd have extension cords running through the window. It wouldn't be pretty, but we can make that work. Generator is ready to rock and roll. Chainsaw, sitting in the shed. It's got still stable fuel in it. It's full of bar oil. I got enough parts and everything to fix almost anything that goes wrong on it. Chainsaw is ready to rock and roll. Our vehicles, like as a default, we don't usually let them get below half tank. I'm looking at my wife looking for confirmation that she doesn't let her vehicle get below half tank.
No.
I'm going to go check as soon as
it's at a half tank right now. You leave me alone.
But like I was saying, and we were good on fuel for Ida, but like I really look back on, of all the things we shored up that we were deficient on, the one thing we haven't is group. Because
I totally believe that you keep a small group. I do. I think you're better off with people that you know that you can trust. And there are people within our own community that we know we can trust. However, I realize that people are people and that some may turn on you or whatever, but you just have to, be able to trust those people. And I do believe that you work better in a group. I think you do.
Yeah.
I think survival alone is a hard life to live.
Well, the thing that came to my mind when I was writing the article I did this afternoon, kind of looking back at Ida from a year later. So I kind of collect myself about it. I know, not a happy subject. But the one thing that really I think hit me the hardest was just before your sister and your brother-in-law showed up to help dig us out of that hole, we were sitting in the front yard.
It wasn't going to happen.
With a bow saw, a pole saw, and an axe, 3 oak trees down. And we were in such an incredible mess. It was emotionally overloading to know we had to deal with that by ourselves, because half our neighbors left right after the hurricane, and the other half were just not helpful.
Yeah.
I think there's one that she left, but if she'd stayed, I think she would have tried to help. But there was no one else on this street,
young enough, physically strong enough to help you and me do the work that had to be done. And that's why I keep going back to this whole survive in a group, alone or in a group. I want a group.
Mm-hmm.
And the group can't be just the three of us. Because
No, we need to buy some land and make a compound and...
In the interim, though, like we really need to find some people that... Doesn't have to be a ton of people, 2 or 3 families in this area. It's got to be within like 5 or 10 miles. But people who are all able to help each other, first of all, and all prep to help themselves. And then we can all bind together in a bad situation, and then the other families can help the one that's in the worst situation, and then we pool resources. Like I feel like that's where we need to get. I think the biggest problem we have is, who do we trust?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, who do we trust to know everything that we've done and everything that we know and everything we've put away? Like, who do we trust with all that information? Because it's an extremely short list of people that don't live in this house that know even half of what we've done. Because we're just not comfortable letting that information run loose on the internet, run loose throughout the community.
Yeah.
And
I don't want people to know what we have in this house. I'm all for telling them we're preppers, but I'm not telling them what we're prepping.
Yeah, it's just that's a...
Kyle, yes, you get Holly working on some land and we'll figure out. And I'm ready to move to Alabama. I got the accent going and ready to go, and we're coming.
I'm not ready to move to Alabama yet. I'm on about a 5 to 8 year plan to get us in position to be able to make that big jump and be in good shape to do it.
Guy that comments, I don't know what your name is, but guy that comments, I can only hope that obesity will not be my problem. I'm joking.
See that?
But not really.
That's why I'm putting off.
That's what we're prepping for in this house.
Yeah, I mean, in a bad situation, you're gonna miss some meals. This is a prepper belly.
Yeah. Well, is that what we're calling mine?
Mine's bigger than yours by a mile.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm okay with that. I got some pounds we can lose.
Yeah. So this one kind of goes without saying. What disasters are we prepping for, babe?
I mean, we always prep for hurricanes, and God, we talk hurricanes all the time.
Well, we live like less than 75 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. There's a good reason we talk about hurricanes.
I don't think it's less than. Anyway, prep for storms. We right now it's been on the forefront of my mind. Every time I walk into a store is supply shortages.
Why?
Because it's happening.
See, but the reason I ask why is because I haven't had, talking to lots of other people in this space, I have had the experience where some people have said, this is totally out, can't find it within 100 miles of where I live. And then other people have said, well, there's plenty of that on the store shelf. So
okay, well, we saw, it's wherever you, maybe not, I don't know. Recently with the baby formula, we saw that here. I can't tell you the desperation that I read I'm in these mom groups, which are awful, but the desperation in these women's comments of, I can't feed my baby. And I know, yes, women are built to feed their children, but I was one of those that could not breastfeed. And so I relied on powdered formula. You could not find it. Women were posting pictures of Target when they just put out maybe 50 cans of different formula, and women were just flocking. So you couldn't find formula, which is scary. You can't feed your child. I went to the grocery store yesterday. There were canned foods, certain vegetables it was gone. And it wasn't because it was Sunday afternoon. It was gone. And vitamins. The entire shelf was bare. Vitamins there was nothing there.
Take a wild guess
Nothing.
where a lot of the contents of our drugstores come from, where they're actually manufactured. It'll annoy you.
Where?
China.
Oh, well, yeah.
Just putting that out there, like, people have talked for a long time about how so much of our manufacturing has been exported out of the country. And frankly, this is what you reap eventually, is because when the supply chain starts to stumble, we don't make anything in this country. It's all made overseas and brought in. I mean, you should have seen the calamity. Well, everybody knows the calamity that happened when, what was it? The canal down in Panama. I'm drawing a blank. Help me out here, babe.
The Panama Canal?
Yes, the Panama Canal. when they had that barge turn sideways and shut off traffic going through it.
That was in Panama?
I thought that was the Panama Canal.
I don't think that was Panama. Maybe it was. Anyway, but
Regardless,
I gotcha. Maybe it was.
There was a whole ton of boats that could not get through there for a while, and it was causing massive shipping and stocking delays because all of that was going to California to get offloaded, and that was that.
Yeah,
and
I've definitely seen shortages. I have seen the feminine product shortages. Yeah, I saw that comment from Kyle. It's definitely, people just don't, when they start judging these women, Kyle, it was so sad watching these women be degraded because they couldn't feed their child. Why aren't you feeding them breast milk? That's what you're made to do and everything. And I'm thinking, there are, I don't even know what a statistic number would be, but adopted children, there are children that are living with their grandparents or whatever. There's women who can't breastfeed. There's women who are sick. I couldn't breastfeed because I was so sick and taking medicine. It's just so disheartening to watch. And I think that would definitely be something that we would have prepped for if we were still in that time period of our lives.
although that being said, I don't know how well you remember because that's been quite a long time, but I don't ever remember us getting down to our last box of baby formula with our daughter. Like we kept those things lined up on the fridge, on the top of the fridge. And when we got down to the last box, we went out and bought 3 or 4 more. I mean, it was and understand that when our daughter was born, we were tight on money. As most
people are.
Yeah, most couples with newborns are tight on money. But like, even in those situations where having to buy 2-3 extra boxes of baby formula at what, $32 to $35 a pop they were back then.
I don't remember.
I'm sure
I know
it's
that
more.
it's not I mean, it's not cheap having to use baby formula.
Yeah, but at that point, I would have eaten red beans rice 8 days a week to make sure that I had no baby formula on the
Absolutely.
shelf. Because I mean, it's powdered; it's not going bad as long as you keep bugs out of it. I think I wasn't critical of women that could not or did not breastfeed. My main criticism at that point was, how have you allowed yourself to get into a situation where the only thing keeping your child fed you had a can of on the shelf, or you waited until you got down to the last 2 scoops and then you went looking for another one. Like that was the part that drove me the craziest, was just like whether it was baby wipes or diapers or anything. I can't ever remember us being in a situation where we let ourselves get that close to zero because we knew the consequence was her welfare, and we were never going to allow that to happen. And that was before I really dove headfirst into prepping. That was just common sense.
Right.
Not very common anymore.
Probably
apparently.
where it all started for us.
I know where it started for me, but that...
Yeah, the
Yeah.
flood. Mm-hmm.
But I will happily say that, and I tell everybody this, because this is a common thread I see. A lot of people get serious about prepping when they get married and when they have kids. Because all of a sudden there's more people you're responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
And it incentivizes you to get your stuff together in one hand so that the people that depend on you aren't in a bad way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to throw this up on the screen, and I'm going to go back and find that comment because I told guy that comments, don't beat me to the punchline. Where is it? Now I'm going to be annoyed. It was a great comment.
It was a big one.
No.
That's it right
There
there.
it is. So guy that comments said, only investing in skills and zero stockpile or hoarding X months or X years of preps. And that's kind of where this comes in. Knowledge and skills versus gear. What's the balance point between learning skills that helps us be prepared versus just hoarding stuff?
I mean, I'm a teacher. You have to have knowledge. You have to know what you're dealing with. You have to be prepared I keep saying that word. You have to know what situations you might get into, even if they are fictional in books, if they could possibly take place. So you have to research that and go by your best guesstimate of what things will be like, your best guess of what you think things will be like, and prepare for that situation. And then you have to know how to use the gear that you have. You have to practice it. And then you have to continue to learn new things. Like I just commented on Kyle's comment up towards there about planting weed for pain. One of my next big things, now that I have time to do more with my life, is to really start studying fungi and not you, but fungus and things like that, and
Herbal medicine type
herbal
stuff.
medicine. And it was something that my father used to teach me. We used to go into the garden on the weekends, and he would tell me all about the herbs he was growing, what to cook, what to cook them in, and what ailments they helped with, and things like that. And I got away from that because, it wasn't the cool thing to do. And now that's where I'm back at. I want to know all those things. But you have to, knowledge is power. It's corny, but knowledge is power.
Well, and the analogies I give are things from like my own personal experience. You could have a closet full of guns, not know how to shoot. Every one of those guns is useless.
Absolutely.
Worse than useless, they're now dangerous because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Our daughter blew me out of my socks sometime in the past 12 months. I don't remember exactly when it was, but somehow we got to talking about ferro rods, and she wanted to try to start a fire with a ferro rod. So like out there on the concrete of the front porch, where there was no way for the fire to get out of control, I made her a little bird's nest of like a leaf and a little pile of pine straw, and gave her a ferro rod and said, "Hey, here's how to use it. Go for it."
There's pictures on in the Matter of Facts group of it.
Yeah, the Facebook group.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, her technique needs some work, but she got it. She like
she lit that fire.
perseverance and trial and error. She got that fire lit up.
We did. I want to say that we practiced with it at the camping trip, the family camping trip. I want to say we did, because I remember H being there, and
yeah, we did.
Were,
and the fire was made of the firewood was made of asbestos, and that was the worst firewood I've ever seen in my life.
That was the most awful firewood, but you couldn't bring wood into the state park. So
well, I'm gonna bring some kerosene in next time. Believe that.
Yeah, Kyle, that's what I thought. Piper brought her ferro rod, and H was there when we were trying to play with it or whatever.
And what else? Like,
I agree with what Kyle said. It's key to know how to use your gear that you have. You have to. You just have to keep learning, because things are going to change, and the situation you prepare for may not be the situation that actually presents itself. And so if you are just stuck in, well, I have all this gear, and yeah, I know how to use this gear or whatever, and then you just stop, then you're dead in the water.
Well, it's also a function of gaining skills and knowledge without over specializing, because like the analogy I make is like, I used to work on cars a lot, and there are times when I'll encounter something I've never specifically dealt with before, but I understand the principles of mechanics. I can kind of look at something and figure it out. I've always had that ability. And let's say somebody hands me a firearm or weapon system I've never used before. You let me unload it and figure out the controls very quickly and maybe run some quick drills. I'm going to figure out how to run that gun just like any of my own, because I understand the principles and I understand like the broad strokes of how to make something like that work. And I equate this very similarly in, if you learn something, it's best to learn as many facets of it as possible so you can apply it to the situation. Like in modern times, it's super common for people to get really fixated and hung up on like having well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're used to using a GPS or if you're used to using a map and a compass. You should know both. You should understand the principles of running a back-azimuth. You should understand the principles of how to plot a course from here to here looking at terrain, because those principles apply no matter what your tool is you're using to gain
Right.
data. And I guess that's just the way I always look at things is, the skills, the skills without the gear makes life really hard.
Yeah.
The gear without the skills makes life impossible. So, gotta know both. Can't neglect one over the other.
Yeah, I threw that comment up there from Leonard, and that's exactly what I was trying to say.
I modified this question slightly because I didn't like the way it was worded.
Okay.
What to use for hunting? It said versus home defense, but let's talk firearm preferences, which I feel like is somewhere you and I really split apart hard, just based on like the firearms we've grown up using and the firearms we're just more comfortable using.
Okay.
Bearing in mind that like I still need to teach you how to really run an AR, but in the times I've tried to teach you, you're not comfortable with it. It's not a weapon system you're super familiar with.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked, and I know that I've said it on the podcast a few times. I have recoil anxiety. What is it called? Recoil
sensitivity.
Sensitivity. I'm just not. I don't know. I think I've gotten more used to my handgun, and I think I would definitely use that for home defense versus my rifle any day.
And her rifle, by the way, for those of you that just heard her say recoil sensitive, is a 30-06 hunting
Yeah.
rifle.
Explain that to me, please.
No, you explain it to me. It's you.
know.
I still don't understand that.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. Maybe because I don't know how to explain that. I've always shot rifles. I don't know.
And I guess that's kind of something I was leaning towards, is that, growing up in a much more rural part of Louisiana than I grew up in. I grew up in the suburbs. You grew up in a town that has 10 stoplights total.
Yeah, and
I've
8
seen
of them are around the
courthouse.
courthouse.
She told, slight sidebar, she told me that story when she was taking me home to meet, like, my one-day sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws and the associated friends for the first time. And then we drove through the middle of town. I was like, oh my God, there really are only 10 stoplights here. Like, I thought I came from a small town. I was sorely mistaken. I didn't know how small was spelled.
No, people knew your business before you knew your business.
People were calling your
People
mom.
still know my business, and I haven't lived there in 20 years.
People were calling your mom before we got to their house to ask who's that guy with Gillian.
Yeah, that's true. They did. Somebody did that. Anyway. Yeah, so I grew up in a deer stand and not really shooting handguns, but I mean, my dad gave me a 30-06 for my 16th birthday. That was my gift. That was my sweet 16 present, was a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And as a result, like, and I've said this before, like, I feel like if I give you that 30-06 and tell you defend the front door, you're fine.
Oh yeah, I'll be fine. I don't worry about that, but that's not my go-to. I'm not going to grab that one.
But if you if we were in a situation where you needed something with more legs than a handgun, than a little bitty 9mm,
I got you, boo.
Yeah. And this
right, best dad ever. Yeah.
And this is kind of like one of those things that I know you naturally gravitate towards the things you're more comfortable with and just more familiar with. And because of my military experience, like, ARs are very common to me and very very easily understood. I shot an AK for a whole lot, just to get familiar with that weapon system. I've handled and shot a lot of different firearms, so I can pretty much grab anything in the collection and run out the front door and be ready to rock and roll. And I feel like with you, like, you tend to gravitate towards those things you're more comfortable with because it's just something you haven't spent as much time as I have really trying to, like, commit myself to that aspect.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you're most comfortable with, too. So anybody's going to gravitate to what they're most comfortable with and trust themselves with. True.
But
I heard, you're right. That's what I heard. You're right.
I'm not saying that word on a recording on YouTube. I'll have my husband card removed by force.
Nah. Next.
But I would say that for hunting use, this little lady over here would keep all of us fed, and I could just stay on the front porch and
I
drink
gotcha.
beer.
Let's do it.
So Gillian is going to roll her eyes at this. MREs, are they worth it? Have you ever eaten an MRE?
Yes. I
Was-
ate one during Ida.
Was not your funnest
I ate
experience,
them
was
during
it?
Katrina. I mean, they're enough food. They're food. So, are they worth it? As a last resort, I'd rather eat beans and rice for a month.
Can I get that in writing?
No, I didn't say that.
She
Dang
said
it,
she
take
would
it.
rather
I take
eat
it back. I
Red
take
beans
it.
and rice for a month. And I have it.
I take it back.
I have it recorded now.
Oh, crap. Darn it. I take it back. Over MREs.
Backpedal out of that
Wait,
one,
no,
babe.
now if those are my choices, then yes, I'll eat red beans and rice for a month if I have to eat an MRE as my only option. They're yeah, are they worth it? Absolutely. Put them in your preps and have them, and then if you're cutting down 3 oak trees and you need the calories and you don't want to open a new bag of rice or whatever. I mean, yeah, the kids were eating them, but we were working hard. We needed to eat them. They're not my favorite, but I'll eat them.
Okay, so well, like, what percentage of a prepper pantry would you say is
2.
MREs? 2%?
2%. 0.5.
I
I
will-
mean, wait. Okay, time out. Are we talking like military MREs or Mountain House?
both.
Okay. If we're talking military prepped MREs,
Like those that are on the floor, right over there.
yeah. Negative.
Like, never.
Put a box.
Never.
I'm not saying never.
So 1%?
But I'd rather
2%'s already pretty low.
Mountain House and things like that, yeah. Bulk up on that stuff. But yeah, Leonard, they are options. Absolutely.
Apparently not good options.
They
according
are
to some.
options. They're options. They're not my first option, especially if we have like biscuits and gravy Mountain House in there.
The biscuits and gravy Mountain House is fire.
Yeah.
I mean, and
But I
that,
do I like the Mountain House and those, but
now I say the same thing about both Mountain House and MREs for the exact same reason. It has nothing to do with taste. I tell everybody, I think you should have some. I would never recommend a person heavily invest in either because of cost. Because, like, I haven't checked the prices recently because, frankly, I have enough to feel like I'm in good shape. And we've diversified our food preps in every other direction other than MREs and Mountain House.
mm-hmm.
But, like, the problem with MREs and Mountain House is, like, I remember Mountain House being, like, $8 for that one little bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a long while ago, the buckets that I have out in the garage, those were $80 for the bucket. I'm sure there are more now. And I'm sure the buckets are probably smaller. But to me, the purpose of an MRE or Mountain House is if I need to take food over the road, refrigeration is not going to be readily available, coolers you don't want to depend on, can't get ice anyway in a disaster situation. So in those kind of situations, like when we had to go to the next town over to check on your parents and get them shored up after Ida, I mean, I had a bag with MREs and Mountain House in it and, you know, a whole bunch extra water and everything in the truck. We were going to eat that if we got hungry because we weren't going to pack a cooler with ice we couldn't find and couldn't make because, you know, we didn't have that option available to us. And it was just one of those situations where, like, in that situation, MREs Mountain House filled the need. But I would never recommend a person stock them because for the same value of a bucket of Mountain House or a case of MREs, you can put away a ton of canned vegetables, rice, beans, like canned meat, potted meat, all kinds of stuff, and have better variety, better nutrition, and your dollar goes further. So
Agreed.
for me, it just comes down to it's a cost analysis at the end of the day. It fills a need. It's a very niche item to me, but I would never say put all of your money in MREs because I mean, what is a dozen cans of Blue Run or red beans and a big bag of rice cost? that will feed a family for quite a while. So I
Especially Phil's family.
You got beef?
No.
I loved my red beans of rice, and I made her eat so much of it when we were dirt poor when we first got together that she now like cringes at the idea. You cringe.
I do. Yeah,
It kept us fed.
it did. We were preppers before we knew it.
No, we were just poor.
Yeah, we were.
All right, so last one until we cook up something else to throw in here. What is the best way to filter and purify water? And I want to front load this by saying purifying and filtering water is not our immediate go-to in an immediate use situation, because we have 28 to 30 days, depending on how far we stretch it, of water bottled up on a shelf, ready to rock and roll. And I've debated this endlessly with other preppers who say, well, no, you should have a way to filter and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I've always gone back to the idea that during Hurricane Ida, what happened to the water pressure, the morning after the storm passed, we woke up, what was going on with the water pressure?
There was a tree on the thing.
There was a tree
On the tank.
on the holding tank that services his neighborhood. There was zero pressure. As a matter of fact, we heard a tree fall in the middle of the night, and I specifically heard a loud hissing noise. And
I did. Yeah, I remember that.
I told Gillian at that moment, I'm like, we're not going to have water pressure in the morning. Because I knew what it was.
I thought it was gas was about to explode.
Like a gas main or something?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a gas
was
main, because
not
those
fun.
are usually far enough underground that, that wasn't my first thought.
Yeah,
My first,
when the demons outside are whistling trying to find you in your house, you kind of go to the to the worst case scenario, and the water tank outside was not where my brain went. So
I mean, that's kind of fair. But, yeah, we woke up to no water pressure, and there were a lot of people that, like, they would have happily boiled water on the stove if they could have, but when the water pressure was zero, they were strung out real bad, real fast. And the first thing I did that morning was I pulled like 4 2-liter bottles off the shelf, and I poured water into my little camp coffee maker, and we still had gas service at the house. So I was making coffee the morning after Hurricane Ida on the burner in the kitchen
thank God.
with a lantern. Look, sometimes it's the little things.
Yeah, coffee's always a little thing.
But
Big thing.
I guess that's so that I front load this conversation by saying that filtering and purifying water is not our go-to.
No, and I'm not an expert in either filtering or purifying water, so my response is not going to be an educated opinion.
You want to become one real quick?
Why not?
Okay. Every time we go camping, and I'm kind of ashamed I haven't gone over this with you before, but the rucksack back there that I always take camping.
I know what we have.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, I'm just not an expert on the best way to filter or purify water, which is what your title right here says.
Yeah.
Boiling it is the best way to purify it. No.
You still need a method of filtering junk out of it, though.
I said purify.
Okay.
But filter, I mean, load up on coffee filters. What's my commenters saying? Help me out here, guys.
Coffee filters or pantyhose?
Yeah, but if coffee filter is going to be better than pantyhose.
I'm just saying, in a bad situation, you learn to become MacGyver real fast. Water bladders that go into the tub. I think he's talking about like a water bob, if you've seen those. It's the big vinyl bags that fill a tub. We don't, and mainly because, like, the whole purpose of that is that you don't necessarily want a bunch of water just sitting open in a tub, especially a tub that you wash your behind in. Like, you don't want to trust that to be drinkable. And the idea of a water bob is it lines the tub and then encloses it and makes sure you can fill the whole bathtub up with potable water from the tap before an emergency.
That's really smart. I hadn't thought about that, mainly because us country folks, when a storm was coming through, you took your bath before the storm got there, and then you filled your tub up so that you could flush your toilets and you know whatever. Yeah, Leonard Sand. I think of like natural aquifers and things like that, and how does the earth filter its own water? Definitely sand, gravel, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, and that's a very traditional, old school, but it works well. It's a sediment filter. You just want gravel, fine gravel, sand, so on and so forth, and it as the spaces between the particulate get smaller, it filters finer and finer.
Right.
I point out to a lot of people, I'm like, if you want cheap water filtration option, I would not trust it to drink without boiling it, but it'll at least get all the junk out of it. Go to a pool supply store, get the smallest sand filter they make, like the little bitty ones that you put on a small above ground pool. Because what do you think that is? It's a sand filter with PVC fittings on it. I mean,
Yeah.
you could
Swimming
plumb.
pool. Mm-hmm.
Well, but what I'm saying is you
That's
could.
what Leonard said, not me.
Oh yeah, but no, I mean, you can your pool supply store has very efficient, very space efficient sand filters on hand, and I know from being a pool guy, they're very robust. They last a good long time. You fill it up with sand, and you plumb that in line with a gravity fed water source. As long as it's got enough height in the tank that the pressure coming down forces it through that sand, because I think there's several psi of back pressure on them. I mean, that'd be a very efficient way of filtering junk out of your water, and then you just have to boil it to get any microbes out. Although if you're catching rainwater, there shouldn't be a lot of microbes in it to begin with. But for filtering, purifying, like my go-to is, I've got a Katadyn Varia water filter, and it stays in our hiking pack. Bearing in mind that when we go camping, we always have 1 or 2 5-gallon NATO water cans with us. So, like, we pack in our own water, and most of the places we go, we have water on tap anyway. So the NATO water cans are really, I just can't get over the idea of going someplace and being dependent on water I can find locally. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And fill the washing machine with ice and drinks.
I've seen it done, Kyle.
He's rode out a couple of hurricanes, hadn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was mostly dorm rooms.
Yeah. But that's in the hiking pack. So if we had to filter out water we found locally, that's an option. That is enough for the 3 of us for a pretty extended period of time. For here at the house, I actually purchased, and I haven't assembled it because it's all collapsed together, so it takes up less space.
I'm so sorry.
But I've got 3 5-gallon food grade water buckets with a set of legit Berkey water filters.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was I could take one, put it on top of the other, run the Berkey filters through the bottom of one bucket into the lid of the next, silicone the 2 together if I need to prevent any leaks, and I can make basically a homemade plastic bucket Berkey. And that would, and of course I have a spigot and everything to plug into the bottom of it, but that would provide us all the water we would need. Because the idea was always, we've got 35 gallons worth of water out there tapped into the downspouts, and I can bring that in 5 gallons, a couple gallons at a time with a bucket, throw it in the top of the Berkey, clean water out the bottom. Mm-hmm. Now I have sustainable replenishing water. Although, I'm sure you probably noticed those 2 big 55-gallon barrels over on the side of the yard.
The ones we brought home from your dad?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you and I need to have a discussion about how we integrate those into some kind of a water catch system.
Okay.
Just saying. 35 gallons is better than nothing, but if we could expand that out to like 130, 140 gallons of water, and every time it rains it fills up, that'd be enormous. Not to mention, if we ever get into gardening again, which I'm kind of would like us to, we'll have all the water we ever need to, water plants and not have to run up the water bill here at the house.
Let's do it.
Well,
What do we need a discussion of?
Because I don't have a green thumb and I kill everything that grows except for children.
Yeah, I kind of don't have a green thumb either, but
Well,
we'll make it work. We'll do something.
the last time we were gardening, it was going really good until you and Piper both caught the flu at the same time, and then I
Yeah.
totally forgot to water the garden for a week with pretty predictable results.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of the list. I guess the real question is, like, I feel like this was pretty representative of a lot of like classical prepping debates.
I told him we couldn't do another episode of a woman's perspective of
We don't
prepping.
do that anymore. We've evolved. We've moved on. But is there anything else you would like to talk to the listeners about, the viewers about? before we sign off. Like, I love having you on the show because our backgrounds and our life experiences before we met are so different that we come into prepping with totally different ideas a lot of times. Even if it's something as simple as I'm a man, therefore I'm like inherently not the brightest in the bunch, and I very often forget about really simple things like you better have Oreo cookies and feminine products on hand or we're going to have a really bad day.
Yeah. I don't have anything prepared. I was not prepared to come on today, so I think I did a pretty good job.
I would say so, but that's also why I brought you on, was because you weren't prepared, so we could just kind of throw you into the lion's mouth.
Ooh, there's a comment. What's the comment? Marriage and prepping.
Oh.
What do you want to know? What do you want to know?
Let's bite that off before we sign out.
Has it always been easy? No. I've had to get over the whole stigma of what are people going to think. I don't care anymore.
I've had to learn to
help me out.
I've had to learn to compromise with someone in totally different ways than I ever did when we were just a married couple and not married preppers. Because when it wasn't prepping we were trying to compromise on, I've always and this is like just general marital advice. I've always lived by the idea that if I'm not prepared to have my wife pissed at me for a week, it's not worth fighting about.
Yeah.
Not saying she takes a week to get over everything, just every now and then. But my point is, and that's why I tell husbands all the time, I'm like, marriages really pick your battles. I tell wives the same thing. I just don't get the same response from most wives I do most men.
It is. It's pick your battles.
But if it's not that big of a deal, don't fight over it. It's not worth it. It's discord in the house, it's frustration, and it just doesn't need to happen. If it's worth fighting about, and Gillian knows this, I will fight to the literal death because I feel like it's worth you being mad at me because the penalty for me not voicing my opinion is catastrophic. So if it has to be a fight, it's going to be a fight in discussion. But if it's not, then don't. But the problem is when you integrate that into prepping, in my mind, every one of these subjects is life or death. So it put me in the position of I have to compromise because I have to get her buy-in. Because if I don't get her buy-in, I'm stuck doing this by myself, and that's going to make it a lot harder. But how much can I compromise and still feel like I'm shoring up something that could be a life or death situation?
Well, and for me, you're compromising, and that's a good thing. I always go back to what kind of threw me over the hump was I had to just trust that my husband was making decisions for the family that were for our well-being. And once you get past the stigma and once you get past the negative of what a prepping lifestyle is about, then you have to just turn to your partner and you have to just trust that that person is, I would say for the most part, I would say most preppers are doing it for the well-being of the ones that they love. And it took me a little while to see that. It took me a little while to get past the stigma and to think that my husband was crazy. And we joke about it. But at the end of the day, Phil was making decisions for us that were going to keep us in a good place if shit hit the fan. And I have to just hi Stuart. I had to just get to that point where I just trusted my partner. I knew that Phil had best interests at heart for us. And then I got involved and I started to see, he needs help with this because this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And what continues to keep us on the same page is unfortunately continuing to go through times where we have relied on our preps more than we've ever wanted to. So I just keep going back to that. You have to just trust that your partner is making those decisions for the best interest of your family. I don't know.
Well,
kind of like this guy too.
The other thing I was going to bring up was like you've been approached by I think mostly other women, about prepping, about how do they get their spouses involved, or how do I do this, or like you've had the opportunity to kind of help mentor to other people, and you've several times you've discounted your knowledge, but I've always tried to point out, I'm like, that's the beautiful thing about this lifestyle is that everybody comes in with their own experience and their own perspective, and the perspective can be uneducated and still incredibly useful. Because even if you come into prepping with like a month of doing it versus 10 years, that new perspective is still new and challenges everything that's out there. And sometimes the lay person sees things that the rest of us overlook, like feminine products, because I'm a guy. I don't think about
you get used
that.
to your preps. You get used to thinking about different things, and then someone with common sense rolls in. Not that we don't have common sense, but just a different perspective rolls in, and they say, well, have you thought about this? And that's a lot of what Phil and I, that's how we keep it together, is Phil's going to think about one thing, and then I'm going to fill the void. And then I'm going to think about something, and Phil's going to say, well, what about this situation? Or did you think about this prep? And what if this happens? Do you have that in your whatever? So...
Well, in the same way that you trust me to kind of have our family's best interests at heart, when you tell me, hey, Phil, you really need to shore this up, I trust your judgment, because you think of you've never once brought anything up that I thought that is ridiculous and that makes no sense. It's always been a forehead smack moment and be like, you stupid SOB, why didn't you think of that?
You should never think, you stupid SOB, why didn't you think of that? I mean, that's why we have this partnership. That's why we're a team. We're a couple. You have to feed off of each other.
We do that.
And sometimes I'm smarter than you.
I'm okay with that. You're better looking already.
Oh, making me blush. Stop.
So I guess we'll go ahead and sign this one out. This was not well advertised. This was very quick and impromptu. Andrew's out of pocket until the weekend, so
slacker.
He's.
I always call him a slacker when I'm on.
We've got something in the pipe for him. He's bringing a guest on, but we couldn't get them together till the weekend. That's going to be a fun show. That won't come out until next Friday, but this will come out this Friday. So for anybody that you're hearing this on the podcast, you could have heard this on the live stream. You just need to go over to YouTube and subscribe to the Matter of Facts podcast channel, and then maybe you could join in the fun.
You could have seen me.
Could have seen Gillian. Still can, technically, because
I know,
after these live stream, they're there forever. Unless the internet crashes.
That's scary.
Until the internet crashes or YouTube deletes itself,
really
I have to check my comments real quick.
What happened? Oh, a prepping power couple. Thanks. Hey, we're always here.
Yep. And we practice what we preach, even if we're not preaching it to y'all at that exact moment.
Yeah, it's true.
But Matter of Facts podcast heading out the door. Say goodnight, Gillian.
Good night, Gillian. Goodbye, guys.
You and Andrew both do that to me when I say that.
Well, here. Good night, everybody.
Good night.